in the shadows. Each story is a journey into the unknown, where the lines between reality and the supernatural blur. But be warned, these tales are not for the faint-hearted. Tonight, we begin our first chapter. A small town, innocent children, and a sinister force lurking in the dark. Join us as we unravel the secrets of Hollow Pines and face an evil that is only the beginning of something far greater. Settle in, turn off the lights, and let the whispers guide you. It started in the dead of night, as most horrors do. The quiet town of Hollow Pines was blanketed in darkness, the kind that pressed heavy on your chest and made you question every shadow in the room. It was here that the first child vanished, a little boy named Thomas, just 7 years old. His parents swore they'd tucked him in at 8 p.m., the same as always. But when they checked on him in the morning, his bed was empty. The only trace of him was the faint outline of small footprints leading away from his window, into the woods. They called the police, of course. Search parties were formed, flashlights cutting through the dense trees. But Hollow Pines was surrounded by miles of forest, dark and endless. Days passed, and there was no sign of Thomas. And then, another child went missing. This time it was a girl, Abigail, just 6 years old. Her parents swore they heard her laughing in her room that night, as if someone were telling her a funny story. But when they opened the door, she was gone. No footprints this time. Just a single strange symbol carved into her windowsill, a circle with jagged lines radiating outward, like a sunburst. Whispers began to spread through the town. Some said it was a predator. Others whispered about the woods, about the stories their grandparents used to tell. Stories of something ancient, something that fed on fear. Clara Mayfield heard the rumors. She always did. Clara and Evelyn stood frozen in the room, the jagged sunburst symbol glowing faintly on the wall. The air was heavy, each breath thick with unease. The faint sound of a child's laugh broke the silence again, but this time it was closer, much closer. Clara spun around, her flashlight catching movement in the corner of the room. Shadows swirled unnaturally, forming a shape that was almost human but wrong, its edges shifting like smoke. The laughter stopped, replaced by a low, guttural voice. "You shouldn't be here." Evelyn clutched the journal tighter, flipping frantically through its pages. "That's not Morvina," she whispered. "It's one of her guardians." Clara didn't wait for an explanation. She stepped forward, her flashlight beam cutting through the swirling dark. "Where are the kids?" she demanded. The shadow twisted, its form elongating unnaturally. "The sacrifice is near. You cannot stop it." The temperature in the room plummeted. Evelyn muttered under her breath, tracing a symbol in the air with her finger. A faint glow followed her motions, and the shadow recoiled slightly, hissing in anger. The hiss grew louder, a grating sound that seemed to scrape against their very nerves. Evelyn continued her incantation, her voice steady despite the looming figure. "Ego lux lucis son, umbras fugam," she chanted, the Latin words cutting through the oppressive darkness. "We need to go," Evelyn said. "Now." "No," Clara growled, "not without the kids." The journal led them deep into the woods, to a cave hidden beneath twisted roots and moss. The entrance was narrow, almost unnoticeable, but inside, the air carried the unmistakable sound of children crying. Clara led the way, her flashlight sweeping across the damp walls. The deeper they went, the louder the cries became, mingling with the hum of an ominous chant. Evelyn stayed close, her hand gripping the journal like a lifeline. When they reached the main chamber, they froze. 6 children stood in a circle, their faces pale and tear-streaked as Morvina chanted in an ancient tongue. The witch's appearance was grotesque. Her face was human, but her limbs were elongated, her fingers tipped with claws that scratched at the air as she spoke. Her eyes were empty voids, reflecting no light, yet they seemed to pierce through Clara and Evelyn. Clara didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, breaking the circle. The moment she did, the cave erupted in chaos. Shadows poured from the walls, clawing and biting. Evelyn shouted an incantation, and a burst of light erupted from her hand, forcing the shadows back. "Get the kids out," Clara yelled, drawing a silver blade from her belt, a weapon Evelyn had insisted she carry. It glinted in the dim light as she lunged at Morvina. The witch screamed, her form shifting between solid and shadow. "You stop me! I am but a servant!" The harbinger comes. Clara's blade clashed against Morvina's clawed hands, sparks flying as the silver burned against her unnatural flesh. The witch's chanting turned to shrieks, her words a mix of curses and incomprehensible threats. Evelyn stood back, her voice rising in a new incantation. "Per sanctum lumen tenebris," she commanded, and a circle of light formed around Morvina, trapping her within. The shadows fought back, lashing at Evelyn and the children. She raised her hand, drawing a protective sigil in the air. "Presidium sanctum," she cried, and a shimmering barrier encased the children, shielding them from harm. As Clara fought, Evelyn guided the terrified children to safety. She held out her hand, murmuring a protective charm, creating a shimmering barrier between them and the shadows. One of the children, a girl clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, tugged on Evelyn's sleeve. "She said we'd never go home," the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "You're going home," Evelyn promised, her voice firm despite the chaos around them. Clara fainted to the side, dodging Morvina's clawed swipe, and drove the blade into the witch's chest. A surge of dark energy erupted, throwing Clara back. With a final ear-piercing shriek, Morvina dissolved into ash. The shadows vanished, and the cave grew silent. Clara stood over the pile of ash, breathing hard, the silver blade still glowing faintly. She looked up to find Evelyn leading the children out, their small hands clutching hers tightly. By dawn, the children were reunited with their families, the town of Hollow Pines breathing a collective sigh of relief. But Clara and Evelyn knew this was far from over. Back at the motel, Evelyn laid out the journal on the table. "Morvina was a small piece of something much bigger," she said, tracing her finger over a passage. "The harbinger isn't just a legend, Clara. It's real, and it's coming." Clara sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Then we'd better be ready." As they packed up to leave, Evelyn paused. "We've got more work to do, don't we?" Clara nodded. "This is just the beginning." Outside, the sun rose over Hollow Pines, but the light did little to chase away the lingering darkness. Somewhere far away, a figure watched from the shadows, its hollow eyes fixed on the rising sun. The harbinger's whispers carried on the wind, a promise of the horrors yet to come. Another night, another battle won. But for Clara and Evelyn, the war against the supernatural never truly ends. The shadows hold more secrets, and more innocent lives hang in the balance. As they drove into the rising sun, they braced themselves for the next case, knowing the darkness was always one step behind. If you're ready to join Clara and Evelyn on their journey into the heart of the unknown, like this video, subscribe to Veil of Dark Whispers, and hit the notification bell. Together we'll uncover what lurks in the dark and fight to keep the light alive.